Wrong page, I apologize, I've jumped ahead a week. It is Thursday, February 15th. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and before we proceed, if I could get you to do a roll call vote, Mr. Mena?
For approval of agenda?
We do a roll call, I'm sorry, I just guess we should have done a roll call before, but...
Okay. Trustee Cook?
Here.
Trustee Glebzinski?
Here.
Trustee Hood?
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee O'Connor, I think, is absent, excused. Trustee Stevenson?
Here.
All right, and we welcome you this evening, and we have a first item on the agenda for a vote is the approval of the agenda. May I entertain a motion, please? Mrs. Glebzinski?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Glebzinski and supported by Mrs. Stevenson. We don't have any changes to the agenda that I'm aware of, so I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 6-0. Next item on our agenda is our student board member report. We have bonus students here tonight because sometimes we only have one, but we have two this evening. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Ashna Taluther, an 8th grader and student council president at Novi Middle School.
I'm Evie Ugama, student council vice president at a 7th grader at Novi Middle School.
Spring sport registration has started. Teams are forming for girls soccer, softball, and co-ed track and lacrosse.
We have 352 7th graders signed up for next November's 8th grade DC trip. We will be taking 8 buses of students this year. This is an awesome trip. We are glad so many students will be attending again.
It's time again for our annual variety show featuring our talented students. Auditions will start on February 26th. Performances will take place during the school day on Thursday, March 29th. We are looking forward to a very cool show.
Our school play will be held tomorrow night, February 16th. The Novi Theater Company presents Shakespeare's Next Top Model and the entire American Revolution in 40 minutes or less. We hope you can join us. The play starts at 7:30 p.m. at the middle school auditorium, and tickets are $7.
Our Semester 2 Media Technology students use the new teleprompter system. It was installed on Thursday, February 8th. We recorded our first WNMS broadcast of the new semester, and the new teleprompter system worked wonderfully. The students were stress-free, and the system was smooth without jumps in the script as the old teleprompter system tended to do. It was a great first broadcast. Thank you to Wanda Ciancio and the Novi School Districts for giving us the new system.
19 members of the middle school choir sang in the all-state choir on January 25th at the DeVos Performance Hall in Grand Rapids. Over 1,000 kids from all over the state auditioned in October for 300 spots. Novi Middle School had the most students represented in the choir.
The Novi Math Club participated in the Michigan chapter competition on February 3rd. 8th grade student Abhishek Venkapuram and 7th grade student Shreya Srivastava will be advancing to the state's finals, which will be held on March 10th. Good luck to the both of them.
Student Council will be having a fundraiser next month. We are selling silicone bracelets with motivational sayings. Our plan is to raise money to help pay for the 8th grade farewell event happening on June 1st. Our goal is to raise enough money to pay for the event so all 8th graders can attend for free.
The Detroit Science and Engineering Fair will be held on March 14th. We have 20 students that have qualified to attend. The projects are interesting and include such topics as extracting DNA from strawberries, best uses of household insulation, and can a potato produce electricity.
January 17th, the middle school held a roundtable discussion night for parents to join in small groups and discuss topics important to our middle school families. We discussed the following topics: Novi Power Anti-Bullying Program, 8th grade scheduling, school policies and procedures, math program, and foreign language program.
February 22nd is our middle school meeting for next year's 7th grade families. This will be a time to find out about middle school life and what to expect for next year. It begins at 7 p.m. and we hope to see many people there.
Wow. Are you sure that's it? There is a lot going on at the middle school and a lot of very impressive things going on. So thank you for sharing all that. But some of that is new to me. I don't know about the rest of the board members, but holding a fundraiser so that all the students can, at least that's new since my kids went to school there, which was a while ago. So other,
Why are you looking at me when you talk about students?
sorry. Anyways, that's awesome.
I was going to say, I was especially happy to see that those teleprompters were finally working too. I don't know if you ladies get to work on WMNS, but I'm sure they'll really appreciate having that now.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the play. I understand one of our board members may be in it, so there may be a special guest at the board table. That's just a little teaser for any of you that are here. If you came to watch us tonight, maybe you'll go to the fall play or at the middle school at 7:30 tomorrow night. Thank you both for being here and for sharing all the exciting things that are going on at the middle school with us.
Thank you, Ashna and Evie.
You're welcome. All right, next we have awards, recognitions, and presentations.
Yes.
Dr. Weber.
Sounds fantastic. And right now, Gary Kinzer, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, has the pleasure of elevating and celebrating 3 of our finest teachers in the district who, in my opinion, serve in the best profession, and I'm biased, in the world, which is teaching. And Mr. Kinzer, if you could please introduce the winners of our Teacher of the Year, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. It is my privilege tonight to present our 2017-18 Novi Community School District Teachers of the Year. The process began in January with an email to all staff encouraging them to nominate colleagues for their excellence in the classroom. Not surprisingly, we received numerous nominations of the highest quality, and selections were challenging. Earlier this week, I was honored to be part of a group of administrators and a board member who traveled to 3 buildings in the district to celebrate our winners with their students in the classroom. And it was a great morning. Tonight, we have principals from each of the 3 buildings who are going to introduce their very deserving winners. First, to introduce our Elementary Teacher of the Year is Village Oaks Elementary School Principal, Dr. Alex O'Feely.
Thank you very much, Gary. Today truly is a celebration, and I couldn't be more honored and pleased to be up here in front of you to acknowledge someone that I've been raving about since I got to Village Oaks. And just to give you a little backstory, before I tell you about some of the things that make Lisa Rice a special person, when I got to Village Oaks, I had a lot of community members, a lot of teachers, a lot of former students that came to Village Oaks to tell me about what I was about to experience. And even former principals came and they were raving about what makes Village Oaks a special place. And as you guys know, there's a lot of pride on our side of town. And the name that just kept on coming up was Lisa Rice. So I was thinking to myself, okay, I got to meet this person. I want to know who she is. I want to know why people keep on talking about Lisa. And I have to tell you, Lisa, everything they said about you is true. She's the real McCoy. And when you meet Lisa, you know that she just has a joy for what she does. There's a smile on her face when she walks into the building every single day, and she just brings everyone up. As I started really paying attention to the teachers, and I continued to pay attention to Village Oaks, it was pretty apparent that Lisa has a love not only for the profession, but for people and for kids, that I'm happy that she's being recognized for that. Lisa not only has a beautiful presence, and not only really wants to see kids succeed, but there's a competitive spirit about Lisa that you might not know, so don't let the smile fool you. Lisa truly pushes herself every single day, and I think that's what makes her a champion in our building and for our school. She's on countless committees. She is leading book clubs in our building, and she attends book clubs outside of our school, and she comes to the building at the beginning of the day before I've arrived sometimes and leaves after everyone leaves the building. And there's a joy and a happiness that just radiates. And Lisa, I thank you for what you do. And I'm so happy that the community gets a chance to know a little bit about Lisa and about what makes her special as a teacher. There was a community event that we recently did called Giving Warms the Heart. And Lisa, along with her first grade teachers, they championed that project. And we generated so many goods for some needy schools, and Lisa did it with a smile on her face every single day. And I couldn't be more pleased to work with Lisa, and I couldn't be more pleased to have Lisa be a part of Novi Community Schools because she is a special person, she loves her work, and she wants to see everyone succeed. So Lisa, I thank you for what you do, and I'm so happy that the community of Novi has you as a leader in our building and as a leader for our kids. So thank you so very much, Lisa.
I am truly humbled, honored, and I'm emotional, and I teach first grade, so I cry easily. This is my 24th year in Novi, and every year feels like my first. I get butterflies before the first day of school, and I'm sad on the last day. And I couldn't ask to be in a better district with more supportive administrators, teammates. I'm here with my very first teammate, Ellen Zalokin, who mentored me when I was just a baby, and now I'm not a baby anymore. I'm the mom at work, and I'm with my current teammate, John Smith, who I will retire with one day. I'm just truly, truly blessed, and aside from the committees and the book clubs, I think the bottom line is having that relationship and that bond with those children and the parents, and them knowing how much you truly love them and care. And for new teachers coming in, just keeping that in perspective. Everything else is great. Learning new things is great. I'm all about that. But bottom line, you're in that classroom alone, and just having that bond and that genuine love and care. And I will, continue to do my very best for this district. And thank you so much for this incredible honor. So thank you.
Wait. Before you sit down, Lisa.
Yes.
Excuse me. Before you sit down, why don't you introduce the people that helped support you in your role that are in your family, maybe? Because I see some of them.
I have quite a few people here tonight. So I brought my teammate, Ellen, my very first teammate and very good friend, my mom, Loretta. Behind her is my handsome son, Alec. My daughter, Marissa. Her boyfriend, Logan. My mother-in-law, Mary. My husband, Bill. And my wonderful friend, Sherry Warner. So, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
John.
You mentioned her earlier.
Yes. And her husband, Joel.
We do thank you all for coming and supporting her, and certainly your kids. You lent her to the district probably at times. She's probably missed some things of yours to be here and to sacrifice. So thank you for letting her do that. And of course, her husband should probably mention that too. But anyways, we thank you. We thank you all for being here to show your support too. I know that some of you know maybe your kids had Lisa. That you might want to add something to that, perhaps.
I could add something.
Okay.
So my two boys were in Lisa's class back when we had looping. So they had her for first and second grade. So we had Lisa in our family for 4 years, and it was wonderful. And my boys are both in college now, and when you ask them who their favorite teacher was at Novi, they generally have quite a long list, but Lisa's always right at the top. So
She's great. Even all these years later.
Yep.
It's wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Kinzer.
Oh, no. Next, I would like to introduce Novi Middle School Principal, Mrs. Stephanie Schreiner, who will introduce our middle school winner.
Have you ever had a teacher who believes in you so solidly, so completely, so thoroughly that you lose all fear? Have you ever met someone who is so driven with purpose that is clear that they are focused and unwavering? Have you ever met someone who puts you to shame when you realize that the level of her craft and her pursuit of continuous improvement makes you doubt? Let me introduce you to Stephanie Boersma, who does all of these things and more. Stephanie was hired as an English teacher at Novi Middle School in 2012. She had 5 years of experience before that, and she currently teaches 7th grade ELA. We knew we had an amazing teacher. When she worked with her department on curriculum, we saw great things happening in our classroom. But things really started to happen when Miss Boersma took on a special education co-taught English class for our 7th grade special ed students. At that point, Stephanie intensified her instruction, dissecting individual student needs and providing specific interventions for those students. This expanded into her general education classes with universally designed instruction to reach each specific student. Not only is she delivering high-quality instruction, she does it with a caring and compassion for students that is beyond your imagination. As her co-teacher, Katie DeMonico, says, Stephanie focuses on making authentic connections and meaningful relationships that are far deeper than most people are capable of making. She is able to transform the way that kids perceive themselves by the amount of respect she bestows upon them. Her student, Sky Yuki, says that Miss Boersma has helped me personally by encouraging me, I see head nods over here, by encouraging me to be an avid and passionate writer. I would not be writing this today without her knowledge and wisdom. She uses new and creative teaching techniques that fully embraces her kids. He's in 7th grade. Finally, Stephanie spearheaded the redesign of the ELA curriculum to reflect understanding and application in a way that encouraged her colleagues' participation while creating a battery of evidence-based practices that she pioneered in her classroom and has shared with her colleagues. It is an honor to recognize Stephanie Boersma as the Novi Middle School Teacher of the Year.
Words can't express how grateful I am. I really appreciate the opportunity here to work at Novi Schools. I want to thank my husband, Tom, in the audience. He's right there. My administrators, Stephanie and Andy. They're amazing. My coworkers. But most of all, I think the biggest gift for me is working with the students at Novi Middle School. It's been a pleasure to work and serve the Novi community for the past 5.5 years. And I'm grateful for all I've learned at Novi, and it is my goal to make sure that I implement all that I've learned to continue to help the youth at Novi Middle School. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate the honor.
In 5 short years, the impact that she's had. I'm sure we're going to see you again, maybe up here. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Nicole Carter, who will recognize our high school winner.
Thank you, Gary. It's another great day to be a Novi Wildcat. I have the honor and privilege this evening of introducing you to the Novi High School Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Heidi Pendergraph. Heidi has been the pillar of the Family and Consumer Sciences Department for over 20 years. She serves as their content area leader, and she is an engaged member of our continuous school improvement team. What I can tell you about Heidi Pendergraph is that she genuinely cares about Novi students, staff, and the entire community. Heidi cares about students having a smooth transition to high school. So, what did Heidi do? She helped to implement the Link Crew program to ensure every newcomer has a smooth transition. Students are paired up with a mentor and participate in events prior to the start of school, which helps them to feel welcomed. Heidi cares about making a large high school feel small. So, what does Heidi do? She hosts students in her classroom daily for lunch, providing them with a safe space to talk about their lives and aspirations. She makes herself available after school to support students with studying and homework. Students report that they connect with her. They know that she will listen attentively and acknowledge them having a voice. What stands out about Heidi's nomination this year is the passion in the eyes of her students and their desire to see her earn recognition for being their teacher mom. Her students started contacting me in September to find out how they can honor their favorite teacher who has made a profound difference in their lives. Students love to learn from Heidi. Whether they are learning about how children develop, how to find balance in their lives, or the art and science of becoming a teacher, Students have ample opportunities to grow as learners and leaders under the helm of Mrs. Pendergraft. I am so proud to be standing beside Mrs. Heidi Pendergraft and leading beside Mrs. Heidi Pendergraft, a dedicated professional, a beloved teacher, and a trusted peer. Thank you for taking the time tonight to honor her and all the other extraordinary educators within the Novi Community School District as our Teachers of the Year.
Lisa stole my speech. I can't believe it. I told her not to do that, but she still did. Thank you so very much for this honor. I'm trying very hard not to get emotional because I'm a crier. My family makes fun of me because I cry at commercials, at cards, at everything. So trying very hard not to do that. This is quite an honor for me, something that I never thought would happen. It's not something that I go to school every day hoping happens. I go to school every day wanting to make an impact with my students and wanting to be there for them on their good days and on their bad days, on their days when something's going on at home or on their days where they've just had a bad test. It's my passion. My husband knows that. He gets the brunt of it sometimes at home when I come home. Why are you so tired? Well, let me tell you what happened first hour and second hour. Those kids they're everything to me, and I'm so honored that they took time out of their day to go to Mrs. Carter and ask if this happened, and that means more to me than anything ever will. So I thank them. They're not here. I've had Marissa. I've had that honor, and thank you so very much.
Okay. I just want to say real quickly, because I know a couple of my kids had you too, and I know your classes are very popular, and I don't think it's because of the subject matter all the time. I think it's because of the teacher, and you've got a wonderful reputation there of really caring.
Thank you.
And certainly, given some of the events that have happened this week, I think having somebody in the school that really cares is huge. So for all of you, I will say that having that person that is in your corner is huge. And we thank you all for being there for those kids. So I will open it up to the board. You don't have to stand up there unless someone else wants to.
But I don't think she introduced her husband.
She didn't really introduce. She just kind of pointed to him. Would you like to introduce your husband?
I just got to point to him. This is my husband, Joe.
Thank you for supporting her and letting her vent or dump, whatever it is that she needs to do at the end of the day. We appreciate those that support our teachers too, because we know it's not an easy job. So thank you.
I had her as a teacher 20 years ago. She was my teacher. First year she was at Novi.
Oh, my.
So this is a long time coming.
Look at that.
Awesome.
All things.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the board to make comments if they'd like to for our teachers.
Yeah.
Mrs. Letiz.
Yep. I had the privilege Monday to go to the buildings and be a part of surprising these three tremendous professionals. And I just want to say the district is blessed that all three of you chose the profession that you did. It was obvious in the classroom that you love kids and kids love you. The atmosphere is just so energetic in all three rooms. It made me really proud to be a part of the district. But what really struck me is how humble all three of you were as you were being acknowledged as Teacher of the Year. You deserve it, you've earned it, and I can't tell you how thankful we are that you continue to invest in kids. And Stephanie, I'm so impressed. Not very many people love being with middle school kids. And I've subbed a middle school, so I can attest that it's not always the easiest group. And I'm totally intimidated by elementary. So congratulations, well earned, and thank you, families, for sharing your special people with us.
Any other members of the board care to make a comment? We are very grateful. The snacks out there are for you. We're really hoping not to have to eat them all at the end of the meeting, so I would definitely encourage you. Oh, are you pointing to me?
No, I just want to.
Oh, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Well, please feel free.
So a few observations here. First, the folks in this room obviously represent incredible teaching, but I would also say represent our profession and our calling if you're a public educator in such a fine way and elevate what we do, for a living, of course, but also there's something that you're drawn to. So Lisa, for instance, it was about 2 years ago, I asked her, so what is it this year, what has made your year interesting or good? And Lisa really pioneered the use of our Seesaw app. And if you're a parent in the district and know about it and enjoy getting peeks in your kids through the day and so on, Lisa was one of those folks north of 20 years who took it, went with it, and Lisa and Alex work in a building that routinely has the highest number of Seesaw views from parents across the board. And thank you for that, because I think that what that also does is it teaches teachers that come into your culture how important that is. For Stephanie has been a person that you could just tell from the beginning had an air about her where you walk into a room, and this is it, this is everything. So you walk into a room and there's a poster in a room, and it basically says to her kids that they are loved. Right? It's not rules like sit down by this time, bring your pencil, do this. Instead it is you are loved in my room. And the great thing about her teaching middle school is Tom, her husband, when we were there, I told him on the way down to the room, I said, Tom, here's the deal. Every kid's going to want to know who you are, to see who Miss Borsma is married to. Sure enough, he walks in, and their husband's here. Everyone pivots around, goes up. He was getting high fives from somebody at the end of the class. That was really great. And Heidi is, you want to talk about, she's a high school teacher, but very emotional, as she admitted. And the emotion that you're seeing is the level of care that she brings to her position is stunning. She took the lead on Link Crew, and really that goes to, unfortunately, with what happened in Parkland, a big part of this idea of how do we connect kids so they don't feel disconnected or disassociated. And that's something that you do in your class. When the kids were talking about you when you received your award, it was obvious that the reason that the connection they had with you is because they could tell that you really cared and that you loved them. And so each one of these teachers displays that in their classroom. It's not a surprise to me that you would be chosen, each of you, to be honored for that. You all throw down in the classroom from a technical piece, from a true relationship, trust piece. You garner that with your kids and your colleagues very quickly. So thank you for that. Thank you for elevating our profession. And in light of what happened yesterday in Florida, we are all sincerely thankful and grateful that you choose to do this for your living and for your calling. So thank you very much. And Mr. Kinzer, fantastic job on your first go of it. All the placards were correct. You didn't give the wrong placard to the right person.
That you know.
You said wonderful things about every person when you went into the room, and I think your office did a great job in running the process and honoring our teachers, so thank you.
I did make one major mistake, though.
Uh-oh.
I didn't plan my comments appropriately because I had a few things I wanted to say at the end that you've now all said for me.
No, you can't go. You've got to do it. You're there.
To echo them.
Let it go.
I really believe that true excellence in the classroom can only happen when there is a strong, respectful rapport between students and teachers. And when it's there, you know. When you see it, it's very clear. As I walked into all three classrooms earlier this week, it was so obvious to me how strongly the students in the classroom feel for their teacher. And that's when really outstanding education can happen. So I congratulate our three winners. And they all now are entered into the Oakland County Teacher of the Year Award program. A winner from the elementary, middle, and high school levels will all be selected later this spring. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Next, we have our first opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items. This is the first opportunity for anyone in our audience to address the board on any item that is currently on our agenda. If there is anyone that would like to do so, there are green cards over on the side, and we would ask that you give them to Mrs. Holly, who's in the back of the room holding a clipboard. Seeing no one move to the podium.
Yeah, we'd also say that as much as the consent items might thrill the heck out of all of you who came to celebrate your family and friends, feel free to go.
And eat the food.
Yeah, take some food back with you.
Please enjoy.
If you brought Ziploc baggies, use them. It's okay. No judgment here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Oh, I have a strawberry.
Go ahead, Sally. Wandered off.
Here, let me unplug this.
Downstairs. you go. Thank you. We are back. We took a brief break to just say a couple words to our teachers before they left. We had our Teacher of the Year awards, and next we have our consent items. Consent items are not anything that necessarily needs discussion, so I would entertain a motion on the two consent items before us. Mr. Cook.
I move that the Novi Community School Board of Education accept consent items A and B as presented.
Support.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Unless there are questions, I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
May I make a comment?
Certainly.
I'd like to say thank you to the teachers that are leading the French immersion trip. They do that every other year, and that's a sacrifice of their spring break. They plan it around, our school break, and they've done it a number of years, and it's really exciting for the kids to get an international experience, and thank you for their willingness to organize that and plan ahead so they have time to fundraise.
Yeah,
It's great.
That is the big one for me too, is just the amount of time that they put their approval in and make sure that kids that really want to go have the opportunity, if they're not financially able to do it, to raise the money to go. So yes, to both our teachers, our French teachers, right, that are championing that. All right, next we have our action items. Dr. Weber.
Yes, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Gary Kinzer. Personnel report, please.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Tonight we have 5 recommended actions. First, a new hire, Kelly Lauer. She will be a secretary at Orchard Hills. She is replacing Jackie Abraham, who is moving to a secretarial position in the Office of Human Resources. Retirement, Constance Dye, a teacher at Parkview. A resignation, Elizabeth Elster, a social worker at Village Oaks. Retirement, Elizabeth Garbushian, a teacher at Parkview. And a child care leave of absence, Ann Denny, a teacher at Novi Meadows.
All right, first I'd like to entertain a motion. Mrs. Glebzinski.
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopt the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Glebzinski and supported by Mr. Cook. Are there any questions or comments about the items? Mr. Cook?
When I first saw this, there were 2 names pop up. Excuse me. There are a pair of teachers at Parkview, and they teach together. One's got the other one's back, and we saw it tonight with our Teachers of the Year. Actually, one of these was the elementary school Teacher of the Year last year. So we are losing some great talent here. Mrs. Dye, she turned around, she donated a drum set to the school district on her own. They go above and beyond. Mrs. Garbushian, she'll kill me if I talk too much about her, but she adjusts her teaching to the kids she has. She is very accommodating to their needs. She is going to be a great loss. So these are 2 I hate to see go. And you've got Mrs. Miklos, you've got a big hole to fill in that area. So.
Yeah. I noticed those names too because they've been in the district a long time as well. So it's some institutional knowledge we're losing as well as some really great mentors. So yes, you're right, Mrs. Miklos. You're here tonight to hear us do this, which is to cry with us about those 2 teachers. So, but we appreciate they're not leaving till the end of the school year, which is wonderful. So we get to keep them until the end, and we can all maybe make it over there hopefully to thank them for their service to the district. And the social worker, will we be seeing a new social worker come through at some point?
Yes.
To replace that position? Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments about our personnel recommendations? All right, it's been moved and supported, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting personnel report recommendations as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 6-0. Next item on our agenda this evening is a budget amendment. Dr. Weber.
It is my pleasure to introduce Jill Minnick, our Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations. On June 29th in 2017, this board adopted the district's budget for the 17-18 fiscal year. This is an amendment that gives us basically an update of where we are on the budget that we adopted in a check-in. And it's a pleasure to hand this off to Ms. Minnick, and she will be presenting to us. Thank you, Ms. Minnick.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Good evening, trustees. It is my pleasure to present to you this evening as an informational item the amendment to the 17-18 general fund budget. The amendment of the 17-18 general fund budget, in general, the purpose of the amendment is to incorporate updates to the revenues and expenditure assumptions that were made last spring. By law, school districts must adopt their budgets by June 30th, and at that time, certainly we don't know all the factors that go into our budget for the next year. We don't know what our enrollment is going to be for sure. So this amendment incorporates those updated assumptions. This amendment continues to reflect a commitment to sustain class sizes within targeted ranges and our programming and classroom supports. It also demonstrates fiscal stability within an environment of constrained resources. So let's start by taking a look at the changes to our revenues. We see that the total revenue increase to our general fund is about $1.6 million. That is comprised of four primary factors. The first being an $852,300 increase to our UAAL 147C retirement pass-through dollars. And if you recall, these pass-through dollars are from the state of Michigan. Each school district receives these dollars to help offset the cost of retirement. And we call it a pass-through because we receive those monies in our state aid every month. And the following month, we return them back to the retirement system to help offset those costs. Next, we have a $499,500 increase in state aid as a result of greater enrollment than originally anticipated. And this is significant. Our original budget included an anticipated increase in our enrollment of 40 students, and we were able to exceed that by 58. So we have nearly a 100 pupil increase for this school year, which is fantastic. Next, we see an increase in our state aid for high school pupils. New this year, school districts are garnering an additional $25 per high school pupil. So that amounts to an increase in our revenues of $49,056. Also new this year to Novi is at-risk funding. So we're seeing an increase in our revenues of $89,590. And this funding is intended and aimed at supporting our students at risk of not performing at grade level in the areas of reading and other areas as well.
Can I stop you just for a second, John?
Of course.
So these are two new items in the budget, and in part as a result of the equity study, correct? I mean, the equity study that came out indicated that high school was more costly and the at-risk funding should follow students.
You're right.
So
yes.
Were there any other things that were?
As a result of the study?
That actually resulted in changes in our budget besides those two?
These are the primary
okay.
Significant impacts anyway to our budget.
Okay. We're happy about those.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Next, we can turn to our expenditures. The amendment reflects an increase in our general fund expenditures of nearly $1.8 million. And this amount is comprised of about a half dozen significant factors. The first is an increase of that retirement pass-through dollars of $852,300. And recall that we saw that on the revenue side, and we see that on the expenditure side because it is a pass-through. So it's shown in both places. Next is an increase in our expenditures of $177,000 as a result of additional FICA costs related to the ORS refund of 3% healthcare contributions. If you recall, in January, I had made a brief announcement to the board about PA 75, Public Act 75 in 2010, which required that all school district employees contribute 3% of their earnings to the Retirement Health Care Fund. That was litigated, and at the end of December, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that to be unconstitutional and required that all those contributions be refunded to the employees. At the time that those contributions were made, our school district did not subject those wages to tax. As we refund those monies, we must subject those dollars to both state and federal withholding on the employee's side, but also to Medicare and Social Security tax on the employer's side and the employee's side. So this $177,000 is an increase to our expenditure budget related to those FICA costs on those refunds. The next is an increase in our general fund expenditures of $269,400, again related to those ORS or retirement costs for the unfunded actuarial accrued liability. This is related to those pass-through funds. When we receive those revenues from the state of Michigan for those pass-through funds, it is not in an amount equal to our total costs for that unfunded liability. So the costs of that unfunded liability has to be added to our budget. That's kind of a difficult concept, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain that.
Anybody?
I do. So maybe an assumption on my part, but I always I was under the impression that those 3% that 3% refund was sort of a pass through, that it wouldn't be an expenditure on our part, that it would be some sort of a refund from the state. But what you're saying here is that we do have some liability on that 3% that we're paying out.
We do, and that's because of the time that those wages were earned. When the employees contributed that 3%, it was not subject to FICA at that time because it fell under our Section 125 plan, which allows for pre-tax contributions to health care.
Right.
Now when we make those refunds, it is considered a return of wages. So now we have to subject those refunds to taxation withholding.
It is.
It is complicated.
I'll be honest, I don't fully understand it yet, but we could take that offline if you don't mind.
I'd be happy to do that, absolutely. Next, in terms of our expenditures, we have an increase of $70,000 for support positions in the Office of Academics and Human Resources. We also have hired some literacy coaches at an increase of $95,000. However, we are offsetting that cost with those at-risk dollars that we are now receiving. And last on the list is additional class size support for Novi Meadows and Orchard Hills paraprofessionals in order to maintain those smaller class sizes for an increase of $70,000.
Can I just real quick? So
Yes.
the at-risk funding has to be spent on new. Does it have to be spent on new programs as opposed to? Maybe this is something for you, RJ, I don't know. As opposed to, like sometimes when they assign new funding to us, they say basically it can't be a substitution money.
Right.
It has to supplant, or it can't supplant, it has to be additional. Is that kind of the way that worked?
So you're right in the terminology.
Okay.
Certain grants cannot supplant some of the current costs that we are expending. These are new positions, and so we are not supplanting any costs,
Okay.
and we were going to be hiring these positions regardless of any at-risk funding.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So on the next page, we will take a very high-level summary look at the general fund. And in the first column, you'll see the original budget for this school year, the revenues, expenditures, changes to fund balance. And in the second column are the summary figures for the amendment, our revenues, expenditures, fund balance. And taking a look at the last column, the increase and decrease summary column, you can see that the expenditures exceed the revenues, the changes in those expenditures and changes in those revenues, which results in a decrease to our fund balance of about $154,000. Yet, looking at the line labeled beginning fund balance, you can see that our fund balance for this school year is greater than originally anticipated. So at the time that the budget was adopted, we projected that our beginning fund balance would be $9.5 million. After the audit, it was determined that our beginning fund balance for this school year is actually $10.2 million. So that increase in our beginning fund balance of $709,000 was able to absorb those excess expenditures. You'll note at the bottom, you'll note that the budget amendment continues to meet the Board of Education's expectation that the fund balance will exceed 10% of the annual expenditures. So with the amendment, the ending fund balance equates to 11.8% of our annual expenditures. On this next page, we will zoom in just a bit to take a look at our revenue sources. So most of our revenues are classified by local source revenues, state, federal, and then other incoming transfers. And if we look at the increase-decrease column, you can see that the bulk of the changes are state revenues, which that's the source of the retirement pass-through dollars, our state aid for the additional enrollment, and those other items that I mentioned earlier. On this page, we take a look at expenditures by category. And again, like the other pages, if you take a look at the increase-decrease column, you can see that nearly every category is impacted. And that's because of those three primary reasons: the retirement pass-through funds, the FICA costs related to that 3% reimbursement, and the increased retirement costs that are in excess of the revenue we're garnering through those pass-through dollars. So it touches all of our employees through all aspects of the district. You'll see a decrease in the expenditures for added needs and adult education, and those decreases are a result of our grant funding that has to do with reallocation of some of the carryover monies and also reallocation of some of the additional grant monies that we've received this school year. Finally, what are the next steps? This budget amendment will be recommended for action at the next board meeting on March 1st. And from there, we will continue to monitor our revenues and expenditures and adjust those projections as necessary. And then we will recommend a final budget amendment for board adoption in June. Are there any other questions I can entertain?
Mrs. Klubzinski?
I just have an observation, and very nice presentation, certainly easy to follow, and doing a great job keeping our budget intact and on target.
My pleasure.
Part of the goal of the board is to keep that fund balance at 10% or higher, because just like a homeowner, there are occasionally expenses that you're not anticipating that come along, and if you don't have that savings account, then if you had to borrow to cover that, that would be a negative impact. What I noticed is that FICA obligation of $177,000 is about $20,000 more than the decrease to our fund balance of that was $154,000. We're able to absorb things like that because we have that fund balance, and that I just want to say thank you to your leadership in the finance department, as well as Mr. Barr's previous leadership, to keep us in a situation where we can meet the needs of students and increase when we need to, like at Novi Meadows and Orchard Hills when they needed some parapros, because to balance the class size and not needing another teacher, but to give the teacher some support. It's because we have good financial stewards, and we're blessed in our district to be in that situation.
And
sound financial management.
And Ms. Klubzinski, the piece is, in Novi, we serve a very high percentage of English language learners.
Mm-hmm.
So Title III money will give us just north of $100,000 for that, but really a drop in the bucket compared to the fact that with our high English language learner population, over 1,100 youngsters, we employ many more teachers to serve that population. So that agility that we have within our budget because of sound financial management from our people who do that work is critical for us to pivot. And we couldn't have predicted the kind of explosive growth that we've had. Thank goodness we have the money to accommodate the hires of those staff to service those families and those kids. So thank you for that, Ms. Minnick.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Minnick. It was very helpful and certainly very clear and concise for all of us. And if there are still questions that people have for Ms. Minnick, if you want to reach out to her this week before the resolution comes back to us next week for an action item, that would be terrific.
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have our MASB Board of Directors election. Do you want to handle that?
I mean, my pleasure.
That's okay. I don't know. The MASB has obviously their election. They are the body that represents the school boards in Michigan, and we are a part of that. So there are 4 candidates to represent our district, Region 8, I can just read this. As a member of the Michigan Association of School Boards, the Novi Community School District Board of Education has the right to cast a ballot for a group director in the MASB Board of Directors election. Regions are based on geography, with Novi being a Region 8. Group 5 districts with pupil memberships between 5,101 and 11,000. In our group, there are 4 candidates. The Novi Community School Board of Education is asked to discuss tonight how they'd like to vote and whom the vote will be cast, and then at our next meeting on March 1st, the board will take vote in action. It's an online ballot, so the district receives 1 ballot, and it's emailed to the district or the superintendent's secretary, and after the decision is made, the secretary will cast the ballot for the board. So there are 4 candidates: Don Hubler from the Macomb Intermediate School District, Robert McLachlan, Romulus Community School District, Birgit McQuestion, Lake Orion Community School District, and Darling Pomponio from Southgate Community Schools. And Mrs. Holly provided us with several informational items on each one of those candidates in our board packet. Is there discussion about the candidates? Does anyone have personal knowledge of any of the candidates that they would like to share at this time, or a sense of who would represent us well based on the information that we got?
I reached out to Mr. O'Connor. He's not here today, because I know he knows a lot more of these people than I do, and I sort of asked him whether or not he had any particular recommendation. He did have one name that came up. I'm not married to any of these names. Again, I don't know any of them. He did, his recommendation would be for a vote for Brigitte McQuiston from Lake Orion.
Okay. I serve on the Michigan Association of School Boards Governance Policy Committee with Mr. Hubler from the Macomb Intermediate School District. He's the incumbent. He's also a great guy. I don't know where the board, if the board wants to do a little more research on it. If Mr. O'Connor maybe can provide us with some additional information of why he would support him. I guess I could reach out to him and ask him maybe to send that out to the board this week of why that would be his recommendation. I think that would be helpful. Mr. Hubler's the incumbent. I mean, I don't know if there's a reason that we might not want to support him either. Like I said, I served on a big committee with him, but I haven't had a lot of interaction with him, so we will get his suggestion. Anybody else have a?
No, I was just looking at the MASB certifications that each of the candidates had, because to me it's important that somebody that's elected to the board has been well invested in MASB and is well trained, and it looks like Mr. Hubler would be the choice for that. My initial reaction was maybe Birgit would make sense, because Lake Orion of the 4 districts is the most similar to our district.
Yeah.
But again, her certification involvement at MASB looks quite a bit more limited. So that's I haven't met anyone personally. I just go by what's written here.
Right. Well, like I said, we don't have a ton of information other than what's in front of us, unless Mr. O'Connor has some additional. So I will have him send that through Mrs. Holly's office, so it can just come to us for information, just with for information for everybody. Please don't respond to that, and we'll take it from there. And then next week we will come back and hopefully be prepared to, not next week, next board meeting, we will come back and hopefully be prepared to vote on that. And if anybody does come across some additional information based on people that they talk to or other experiences that you have, please send it through Mrs. Holly's office so that we can all have that same information. Next, we have a resolution on board governance standards. And I'm gonna let you do that, Dr. Weber, if you wouldn't mind. And then maybe you could share a little bit about what you gave to me on the advanced ed standards as well.
Certainly. At the regular board meeting of February 1st, 2018, the board discussed the Michigan Association of School Boards Board Governance Standards. This discussion will continue this evening. If the board approves of these standards, then this will come back before the board for approval at the March 1st, 2018 regular board meeting.
And Dr. Weber had some information tonight from the advanced ed visit that kind of coincides a little bit with kind of maybe a little bit of the rationale. So if you wouldn't mind sharing what you're
certainly.
understanding about.
So this is all public information and knowledge, but we have a advanced ed accreditation visit coming up in May. So our school district is accredited by this organization, as many are across the state of Michigan. And as we're preparing for the visit and listening to the board conversations, it dawned on me that part of what we're going to be assessed upon in the advanced ed visit has to do with the governance of our school district. And that governance, and who they're talking about, is indeed you all, our Board of Education. So as I looked at the standards, a particular one that stuck out to me was 1.5. The governing authority adheres to a code of ethics and functions within defined roles and responsibilities, is part of domain 1 on the leadership capacity domain. So in thinking about that, I made some copies simply before tonight's meeting and wanted to make sure that I supplied the board with that for their own analysis within their conversation. So that is it. Any other comments, questions, or wonderings about that?
No, I appreciate you supplying us with that, certainly
You're
during the
welcome.
discussion, so that we can consider whether or not that has an impact
Certainly.
on this. This would be a resolution, and I know there was some talk last time. There were a few of you that weren't here last time at the meeting, so that's part of the reason it's coming back for discussion the second time, is to give those that weren't there maybe the chance to weigh in a little bit on whether or not this is something you think would be helpful for the board. So I'm going to look to the two of you first, maybe to comment, and then if there's additional dialogue. Mrs. Lebzinski.
I apologize, I'm going to be a little verbose, but I've read through the Board of Education governance standards, and I want to share the guiding principles of the Board of Education, as well as what's listed as the guiding principles of the individual school board members. I'm going to start with the principles of the Board of Education. The Board of Education, in cooperation with the superintendent and stakeholders, establishes and commits to a vision for the school district that emphasizes high expectations for achievement of all students and quality instruction. That's number 1. Number 2, the Board of Education governs in a manner that is dignified and worthy of trust. Number 3, the Board of Education is accountable to the school district community. Number 4, the Board of Education holds the superintendent accountable for creating the outcomes identified in the school district plan. Those are the 4 for the board. And then the guiding principles for individual school board members. Number 1, the individual school board member is motivated by and focuses on what is in the best interest of all students. Number 2, the individual school board member believes in the importance of and actively engages in lifelong learning. Number 3, the individual school board member understands and respects both the authority and responsibilities of the Board of Education. Number 4, the individual school board member approaches school governance work with a spirit of inquiry. Reading all of those from an individual perspective, those are guiding principles that I would be proud to represent and uphold. There's certainly nothing in any of those principles that raises a red flag to me as anything that we wouldn't want to occur for the board. So I can support, I would be happy to support the resolution. My other thought is that while we are individually elected by the community, once we're on the board, we're part of a team, right? And a team that functions at its optimum functions because everybody follows the same rules and playbook. If you had a football team and all 11 players each followed the rules and rule books, you'd have chaos on the football team and likely not win the game. So I think it's really important as our board team that we agree to the principles that are going to guide our actions. I also think it's really important that Dr. Weber brought up the fact that we have our district evaluation coming up in the spring, and I would hate to think that our governing authority 1.5, we're not proud to be able to say that the governing authority adheres to a code of ethics and functions with defined roles and responsibilities. I would hate to think that that would be a chink in our armor as we would go forward with that evaluation. And I think this is, along with our board operating procedures, a great demonstration of the commitment that the board has to our district and to our vision. So I apologize for being verbose, but all of that was really important to me.
Great, thank you. Thank you. One of you. Anything to add, Tracy?
Just working from another school district that is in the process of going through advanced ed, and just working in previous districts, most districts and most boards do have a code of ethics. So I feel like we do need to make sure we are adhering to that as well.
All right, and I know, Mr. Bennett, you had a question last time about how they all kind of fit together. I did provide you, I got a late note from Scott Morrell that I kind of gave to all of you about how, like, kind of the bylaws and board procedures, the code of conduct and governance standards, kind of how they work. Basically, in the synopsis, it says standards are general but a statewide set of expectations. Code of ethics are built at the local level, set by the board and unique to the board across the state, and boards' policy and bylaws are straightforward, and the procedures and code of ethics spell out the details. So it's kind of a macro. I was kind of looking at it as a macro kind of set of standards, as opposed to our operating procedures, which are kind of a micro, the how-to versus kind of the why and the how. So I would agree with Mrs. Glebzinski that none of these raise a red flag for me, and certainly if it's something that the board is willing to kind of say, this is where we're going to, hold ourselves to these standards, or attempt to. I mean, I don't anticipate that we'll all follow, be able to every single moment. I know that as I look through the questions that are posed underneath some of those, I thought I have some work to do in some of those areas to become a better board member. And I think that we've been entrusted with the kids in our community, and becoming a better board member is something that I really want to strive to do. So on a personal level, I think that would be beneficial for me. Did you have something you wanted to add?
So, yeah, I think I mentioned my concerns last meeting. Now, given that we've got some new information today, I'll go ahead and digest that, leading up to the next meeting, and then just give my final comments then.
Okay. And I do apologize. I got it late Tuesday, and I was in Florida and didn't get it out to everybody right away. Thank you, Mr. Cook. What
The same thing, the information coming to us later, I'll digest it. And I did mention my concerns last week. Just another question on logistics of it. Everybody signs it, so I would.
It's a resolution. It comes
Yes.
to us as a resolution.
And the resolution that's in the packet
Oh, is there a place for signatures?
is a place for everybody's signature.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, I would expect it to be a resolution during the organizational meeting for every new board. I would hate to impose our practices on the next board and future boards. So this should be
Something that we add to that
something
policy.
that should be reviewed regularly. And if one person on the board changes, it gets reviewed and taken up then.
I think that sounds reasonable. Thank you. It's a good point. All right. I'll make note. No, I won't make note of that because my pen is not working. Hang on a second.
Keep it.
You got it? Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Sorry. Okay, terrific. This will come back to us as a resolution. At next meeting, if there are additional questions or anything, if we could send them to Dr. Matthews' office, and he could figure out who to answer them, or you can send them to me, and I can see what I can do to facilitate an answer on that. Next, we have a policy discussion. Dr. Weber.
Thank you. This is Board Bylaw Policy number 0144.1, compensation, was originally adopted by the Novi Board of Education on May 15th, 2008. Tonight, the board will have further discussion on this bylaw and policy. And as it reads, board members shall receive not more than $30 per meeting up to a total of not more than 52 meetings, including committee meetings, as compensation for their services. Expenses of board members shall be reimbursed when incurred in the performance of his or her duties or in the performance of functions authorized by the board and duly vouchered.
All right. So we had a brief discussion about this at the last meeting also, and we decided to leave it on there. We had a few board members absent. We feel like this is something that impacts the entire board, so if there's additional discussion on this particular policy by my fellow board members.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So the way that I interpret this policy, and I think it was supported from a response that we got back from the MASB attorney, is that board members shall be paid $0 through $30 per meeting. Now, it's true that this hasn't been practiced as far as collecting any payment for the past 10 years, but that's only because a previous board chose not to. Their decision, though, is not binding on future boards. Now, Mr. Cook alluded to this in an earlier meeting, that this issue should probably be taken up each year during our organizational meeting. And then I believe that the way this policy reads, board members could then state their desire to receive payment, as well as how much they wish to receive, whether it be 0 or up to 30, as long as it's within the guidelines of the policy. Now, personally, without any guilt, I wouldn't have a problem collecting. And the reason I say that is because I know where the money would go. The money would end up back in the district one way or another. As a board member, I'm asked to attend a lot of activities. For example, folks like board members to show up to the NEF Green Gala, but that's an expensive ticket. They like us to participate in the silent auction. That's an expensive venture. I certainly attend a lot of events, some which I don't have to pay for, luckily, a lot of the athletic events, but some that I do have to pay for. Again, all money that goes back to the district. More importantly, I can also use that money to fund and donate to school groups that I wish to help out. And it's something that I've been doing in the past with my own money and equipment that I've donated. We do have a policy meeting next week where we're going to be meeting with our Lusk attorney on policy. We can certainly run this by him. I think it's a good policy. I don't really think we've been taking advantage of it. I don't see any reason why it would have to be rewritten. Nobody's forced to collect on this. But again, I know it sounds a little strange to discuss getting payment for being a board member. But I do it without any guilt because I know exactly where that money's going to end up anyway.
Other board members have comments about compensation? Excuse me, Mrs. Kobzinski.
Yeah, just a little bit of historical perspective. There was a point in time where the district was functioning in a deficit, and we were having to take funds from our
fund balance.
From the fund balance in order to balance our budget. And it was at that point when the board voted to not receive payment for coming to board meetings. And prior to that, and I don't think it has been quite a time before, it was not $30, it was $10 or $15 per meeting that the board members were receiving. I certainly appreciate that there are a lot of things we're invited to, and but I would still support that the money stay in our budget for the good of the students. So.
Other board members have comments about board policy bylaws 0144.1? Mr. Cook?
I guess I've said it before, I'll say it again. The purpose of bringing this up is that, it gets addressed on an annual basis, or for every new board, it gets addressed. Because, once again, here's a previous board dictating what the future board does. And it's, whether the board as a whole determines that, we shall receive compensation or not, I'm in favor of leaving it in the school district. Whether I get to choose where it goes, or as Mr. Mena has alluded to, or it just stays in the general fund, as Mrs. Kobzinski has alluded to. Either way, I'm fine with it. But to have each board make up its own mind is the main reason of having this in front of us.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Mr. Cook, and certainly getting support from that, even just voting on what that's going to be, what that compensation is going to be each year, or how we're going to handle that particular policy, to do that at the organizational meeting. So I did make a note of that as well. So we will put that actually in our, I believe we can add that to the document that's in our board operating procedures that we're looking at. So it's in that organizational meeting piece. I don't know exactly how our policies will change yet, so after that meeting on the 21st, we'll try and get any additional information out that we get about that, or what the policy might change to under the Lusk-Albertson policy provider, and get that information out to the board, so that when this comes back to us at the March 1st meeting, we'll be prepared with additional information to vote on it, and then we can make a decision at that time. And you're right, those two items then, instead of being in February, will be in January, in future years. So, any additional dialogue on that? No, all right. We will move on to comments from the audience. This is the second opportunity for comments from the audience. This is an opportunity to speak about anything within our jurisdiction. We would ask that you fill out a green card and give it to Ms. Holly in the back, that you would approach the podium and know that your comments will be limited to 5 minutes. It is not something that the board will be responding to at this time, but we will listen. So if you could state your name for us.
Yes, my name is Katie. I'm sure you guys are aware of the whole Me Too movement. I know that this is kind of going back a long time, but I know it might not be able to be addressed, and that's fine, but there's something I need to get off my chest. I started high school at Novi High in '94. My parents moved from Dearborn. Needless to say, 4 years was not the best years of my life being at Novi High School. I had a teacher make false accusations that I hit her, but by then, even though she admitted it, it already ruined my reputation. It caused a janitor to corner me in hallways, try to get me to go in closets and kiss me. And I think that he, as an adult, I can look on that and know that he preyed on me because he knew that nobody would believe me. His buddy, who was a Novi police officer, took it to the next level and sexually assaulted me on a traffic stop in Novi, and they covered it up. So all I really want is, because my life was such a living hell from the bullying and the harassment and everything that I had to deal with from the classmates and other people at Novi, is that I was never able to get my diploma because the assistant principal at the time told my mother that he was going to put my diploma in a safe and I would never see it again. I go to the high school in this past fall. My transcripts are missing. They were hidden in the Z file all the way in the back. The senior year was missing. It showed that I did not even attend. They go, "You didn't go here senior year." Well, yeah, I did. They miraculously appeared somehow, and I was being told by the woman at the adult education who does adult education to finish your high school career that I would need 19 credits. I have a letter from my high school counselor stating that I have 20.5, which makes me eligible for my diploma if I earn another half credit, because I guess non-residents have to have 21, not the 19, to get their diploma. So I know we can only move forward from this point. I'm glad I got to say those things because nobody listened to me 20 years ago, but I was able to say it now. But I've called the superintendent's office. I've left multiple messages with the secretary. I've never heard back. So I'm just wondering if whoever can lead me in the right direction. I know I talked with Dr. Weber. It seems like they want me to repeat my senior year. That is not sufficient. We need to figure out a way to move forward. I just don't want this to drag out any longer. I've waited 20 years, and I think it's time. Time is now. Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Murphy, do we have her contact information? I know she only gave us her first name.
No,
but
she
we
has
got
a
her
card.
contact phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. She gave a card to Sheila at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you. Next, we have our superintendent's report.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Weber.
Acting superintendent's report,
Acting
right?
superintendent's report, excuse me.
So in light of the robustness, if you will, of said report, we're going to go ahead in our administrative reports from Ms. Minnick and Mr. Kinzer. We're not going to enact those tonight.
Okay.
They agreed to that. It's not like I'm telling them right now. We talked about this beforehand.
Okay.
So knowing that I had the privilege of being here tonight, I asked each of our building administrators to send me something that was happening in their building or that their school that they were proud of, or something that was really quite good. And just to give a sampling of what that is, I'm going to go ahead and do that. First off, Shaylee Patel, talking about our special education and our unified basketball game. I know many board members were at our first unified game. The team is again playing tonight. And to me, that is a perfect example of FAPE, or a free and appropriate public education, where our students with IEPs and special needs are able to compete on the same court, in the same space, is students without. And it's been absolutely fantastic, and I know, again, several board members have seen that, maybe during board comments. It'd be great to hear you all weigh in on what you saw at those games, because again, I believe I saw everybody there. So at Village Oaks, let's start with Village Oaks, and this is from Principal Ophelia. Our first graders participated in a social studies PBL project-based learning unit called Giving Warms the Heart. Students learned about needs and wants, producers and consumers, scarcity and goods, these are first graders by the way, and services. They also read books and had discussions to gain a better understanding of kindness, to build empathy, and the importance of giving. The project's driving question, which focused our work, was how can we as citizens help others to meet their basic needs? Pretty darn good thing to teach first graders about empathy and also some basic economic theory. As we look at Orchard Hills, Ms. Quiddiquit supplied to develop their growth mindset through the use of smart games equaling smart brains. The games were purchased and granted with an award from the NEF. So we have the Green Gala coming up. Some of the money that is given at the Green Gala goes to our individual classrooms. And the kids are learning to resist the temptation of looking at the solution and to search for other options when solving puzzles. It is through the struggle and the satisfaction gained from creatively solving these puzzles that produces new and usable knowledge. And that's at Orchard Hills, so shout out to NEF there. We at Novi Woods, the entire staff will be 100% PSYOP trained with a sheltered instruction observation protocol. As we mentioned earlier, to Ms. Glebzinski's point and to Ms. Minnick's point, keeping an amount of money in the budget to help us stay agile is important. So that sheltered instruction observation protocol serves our English language learners. Through the work of Alice Smith, 100% of the teachers in that building will be trained. This evening, Jennifer Mikos is here with us in the crowd, the principal of Parkview. And leadership, thinking, and learning continues at PV. One point of pride is that we've just finished 5 thinking days that have happened monthly in vertical teams focusing on the 8 cultural voices from Ron Richards' work out of Harvard. Staff have been deepening their understandings and have actively participating in 3 snapshot visits. Also, thank you to Ms. Lee, our instructional coach, and the entire staff for their trust in opening up their classrooms for all staff to visit, reflect on instructional practice, and talk about next steps in their classroom. At Deerfield, a teacher-led team led by kindergarten teacher Stacy Scott has spent the past 4 months attending PBIS trainings, positive behavior intervention supports, and working to infuse it and build a culture of PBIS at Deerfield Elementary. Really is a goal that we have for the whole district, to have that positive behavior interventional support system. And the high school has a ton of stuff, but take care of that. Novi Meadows, Miss Fenchel is here tonight as well. Novi Meadows 5th graders just finished their outdoor education trips. Each team goes to Walled Lake Outdoor Education Center for 2.5 days. Science curriculum is covered through a variety of outdoor classes. It is an experience that students remember for many, many years, and I believe we may have a board member here who could weigh in on that during comments as well. At the middle school, today the middle school Novi Power Bullying Prevention Committee quickly gathered after last night and the news coming out of Florida and rewrote the lesson for this week's discussion. In the 7th grade, the class meeting used the bystander from last week. They discussed how bullying could lead to more violent behavior and what could deter events like the shooting in Florida. And this is the directions that came from there. So the students, led by Ms. Boersma, who was here earlier tonight, had that kind of conversation with 7th graders. And what we've learned about these situations when you do research on traumatic events with students, not talking about it is far worse than actually going towards it. And while we might be awkward sometimes as adults when we try to talk about these things, pretending nothing's happened, our kids know something's happened. And they're going to wonder why we won't engage. In the 8th grade, the big catch was on perspective and empathy. So you see a theme, 1st grade, 8th graders looking at empathy. And we are adding questions to reflect again on yesterday's events from there. Novi High School, I'm going to just pick a couple of those. One of the things, Mr. Mena and I were at Rotary today, and the city manager, Pete Auger, stood up and said 16 students in Novi ACT perfection. And I'm sure Mr. Mena brought you pride, but for somebody else to notice that, to say that out loud, and to talk about our kids in that way, that was amazing. So that was recent news from the high school.
Well, note that he was taking credit. It was the water that caused the kids.
Oh wait, you're right. You're right. You know that he. Thank you for that.
He said,
I'm being too kind. Thank you for saying that. I think he was saying it's the city water, but I think it might have something to do with our teachers and our administrators. I don't know. Maybe our parents and kids as well. Congratulations to the NHS Dance Company who competed in the League Champions competition and the Rainbow Dance competition of the past 2 weekends. many awards, platinum awards, double platinum awards, fantastic. National Merit semifinalists, again, our number is ridiculous. I believe we're at 36. Novi Palm, second place in the state. And again, Heidi Pendergraph was here as Teacher of the Year. And our yearbook just won the Spartan Award, one of the highest accolades you can get for a yearbook. And we were able to earn that, and our kids were able to earn that. So this is just a little snapshot of what happens in our community public schools on a daily basis. And these are the things that bring, I know, all of you as a board pride in our profession as well, and those who serve in it, a tremendous amount of pride as well. The final thing I'd like to say is, in light of what happened in Parkland yesterday in Florida, the Channel 2 came out and did a video on our ALICE training and what we're doing. And I was very appreciative to Roop Raj and Channel 2 for featuring, I thought, a very balanced perspective on what we are trying to do to keep our kids safe. A point that I'd like to make, though, is that if we are really to address these are technical issues that we can go after, like the training and so on, from a holistic issue, what are we doing to make sure our kids feel connected and loved, right? So that piece from a K-12 system. As a system, we've invested in social workers. 3.5, 2 years ago, the board approved that. Those are the moves as well that we need to make in order to hopefully prevent more things like this from happening. And the final piece, I would say, is that we all as adults, all of us have to look within ourselves and question, do we have the will to do the things that we need to do to prevent these things from happening? These are our kids. When our parents have to speak to their second grader about why they had a drill where they had to run outside and hide, and we think we're doing the right thing, and we are, but for a 7.5-year-old to have that conversation, I don't think there's a person sitting around this table that had a conversation at 7.5 years old with their parents about a drill like that. And we need to be mindful of that. We need to train our kids. We need to help them understand what it means to be safe, but we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we're supporting our kids who may be in difficulty, and also to make sure that we're, again, having these conversations in as healthy way as possible. So with that said, much love and respect to everybody in Florida, what they're going through. And thank you very much to our own school board for making moves such as ALICE training. So every single staff member in our community school district has went through training at least once, some twice. Right? Also, the other commitment to what we are doing to support the mental health of our children. You need to be lauded for as a board for stepping up and doing that. And we talk about the 10% number and things like that. We can't do any of those things unless we have a budget that lets us be agile. And that's something that I have to reinforce again tonight from the report. As Mr. Kinzer brought teachers forward and who are great people in the classroom and do good work, as we have talented principals in our audience, the budget part as well is very, very important so we can pivot and do those things that we need to do. So thank you for everybody in this community that helps this community public school district really be an amazing place for our families and kids. And all those kids who got those awards came from the homes out there, from parents like some of you who provided the love and nurturing that those children needed to succeed in those areas as well. So thank you.
Thanks for touching on our entire district there. We don't often get the opportunity to get that in a nutshell.
You're welcome.
So we're foregoing the administrative reports.
We are.
Okay. That was very nice of you to forego your reports. I know you had some opportunity. You had some screen time tonight. So we will move on to our committee reports. Are there reports by the committee? Mr. Cook?
The Finance Committee met last week. You received a report to the board on that entire thing. So we look forward to the next one for the final budget.
Okay. So you had an opportunity to review that in detail. Wonderful. We do have, to Mr. Metta's point, we have the next Board Governance and Policy Committee meeting will be on the 21st of February, and that will be our next meeting. We haven't met since the last time we were here. I will just real quickly, I read an announcement last. Okay, wait a minute, I have to find. Okay, so at the regular meeting of February 1st, I read a letter from Mrs. Glubzinski stating her intent to resign from the board effective March 15th. And according to Board Policy 0152, the board shall fill a vacancy in any officer position within 30 days of the occurrence of the vacancy. And So we will be looking at eligible candidates as defined in Board Policy 0142.2. We're asking that people submit their applications to the superintendent no later than 4 o'clock on March 23rd. And then we're going to conduct interviews at a special meeting of March 29th. I'm hoping that every board member, it's a Thursday night that we don't have a meeting, might be available at that meeting to interview candidates, because we really don't have any, because of when spring break or the break is, we don't have an opportunity to do it before the regular meeting of the 12th. So we're kind of in a time crunch there. So we'll have a special meeting on the 29th. Hopefully you'll mark your calendars for that. And the decision for the appointment will be planned at the regular meeting of April 12th. According to policy 0142.2, an individual is eligible for election as a school board member if the individual is a citizen of the United States and is qualified and a registered elector of the school district by the filing deadline. So those are the extent of the qualifications. I think we're going to do some advertising of that as well to our community so that they are aware that we are going to be appointing someone to fill a vacancy. And Mrs. Holly will be collecting those applications, and then she'll go about setting up the interviews. Any questions by my fellow board members? All right. Well, if there's no, I'll just say really quickly, having been just north of, I was in Florida just north of where the incident occurred, and it was a very nice community, very similar to Novi's, and that was a little, I don't want to say shocking to me, because really it shouldn't be, because it can happen anywhere. But I think the other thing that struck me is a lot of kids said different things about things they heard him say, but no one said it before. So part of me is like, when you see something, you need to say something so that there's an adult around that, tell a trusted adult that you overheard something. And I think that's one thing that we're all spending time in the schools. We all see social media. We all see things like that. Just to be cognizant and, be aware of things like that. Because there are a lot of people that are hurting in the world, or disturbed, or have mental health issues, or have been bullied. I mean, there's a myriad of things that could have contributed to that event. And I just think every one of us needs to be on the ball where we're at and be cognizant of the students around us, and certainly do our part to embrace and encourage and try to divert any untoward things. So I would just say, it's still a difficult thing, I think, that they're all dealing with, and certainly our good thoughts for them, prayers, whatever, to those families that are dealing with some pretty horrific things right now. And to your point about 7.5, I will just say, when I was in elementary school, we had I'll date myself here, I grew up in an Air Force town, and we did have bombing drills for a nuclear bomb, and I didn't understand it, and it was very scary. And to go home and try and have that conversation with my parents about how getting under a desk would somehow protect me from that, which later I came to find out I wouldn't have done the trick, obviously. But it was on the list of towns to get bombed because there was a big Air Force base there. So we had to go through that, and it was a difficult conversation, and one that nobody really wants to have with a kid, let alone that somebody's going to walk into a school that you're at and deliberately do something that should harm you. So certainly we all need to be aware of that. Is there other board communication?
I just have a question for Dr. Weber. At all of our schools, are all of our students aware of okay to say?
I'm not sure I could say. I'm sorry. I don't know what. We have a throat lozenge. We know that we have it. Are they aware? It's hard to say that every student knows it, but we have several. What's going on here? Help me out, Mr. Kinzer. Help me out.
We have several. That's where you were at.
We have several opportunities for people to give anonymous feedback to us. There's actually a system, a call-in system, a text system, and so on. And Ms. Holly, I know that you're privy to that, and those pieces come directly to you and Dr. Matthews. So it's called Quick Tip.
Okay.
Ooh, you got me there.
All right. Other board communication? Mrs. Kwasinski.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, I did happen to have Channel 2 Fox News on at 5 o'clock, and it was to my delight to see Dr. Weber being interviewed and representing our district well. What surprised me in the report was that apparently we're only one of 3 districts that have trained our staff in Allison, have implemented that, and that was a surprise to me. I thought that it reflected our district very well in terms of you never know where anything's going to happen, but we want to be proactive, and we have been, and thank you for taking the time to do that today and being very well spoken.
Thank you.
Also, I had the opportunity to be at Village Oaks this week. There was a 2nd grade music program, and a couple things struck me about it. First of all, the music teacher at Village Oaks is new this year, Katie Kadnahovsky, and I know I just slaughtered that name, I apologize, but the program went off without a hitch, and I was shocked that she'd only been here since September. Kids did a great job. It was really fun. There was music from Seussical. There was music for Valentine's Day. It was great. One other thing I noticed in the back of the room was a child running up to a person sitting next to me, hugging her, thanking her for coming to the meeting, and then she called that child by name and the parent by name and made a comment about she'd been up since 4:30 in the morning because she's one of our district bus drivers. Her name is Kimberly Whiteside, and she said the kids invited her to come to the program, and it was important for her to go out and do that. And it was, I mean, they were like really excited, waving to her, and it's just so awesome to see that relationship and rapport. And really, up at 4, and she was going to get up again at 4:30 this morning to drive the bus or the next day. And I just a shout out, thank you for caring about kids to that extent. It was awesome.
I wanted to say something. I was thinking about this atrocity in Florida. And, you know, yesterday I had a heavy heart. 11 students were killed, 3 staff. So one was a teacher, one was a football coach who stepped in front of students and was killed. A geography teacher opened his classroom door, to let fleeing students into his classroom. Before he could get the door shut, he was shot. And then the 3rd adult who was killed was the school's athletic director. So 11 students. So yesterday I was upset, just like everybody, heavy heart. And then today I'm angry. And some of the kids from Douglas have been prolifically commenting in social media. And it sounds like they're angry too. And I wanted to read a few comments because in Novi, we make a strong effort to listen to our kids. And these kids did say things about this person with the gun. And the FBI knew what he was posting online. And so here's what the kids are saying. They're saying, and I'll just read a couple of these. They're saying, a gun has killed my fellow classmates. A gun traumatized my friends. My entire school traumatized by this tragedy. This could have been prevented. Another student said, I don't want your condolences. My friends and teachers were shot. My classmates are dead. Do something instead of sending prayers. Gun control would prevent this from happening again. Another student wrote, unless you're going to do something about gun control so no one else experiences what my student has, shut up. One student wrote, I can't stop hearing the sound of the gun as he walked down my hallway. I cannot unsee the bodies of my classmates on the floor. Please keep in mind the horror of what we've gone through today. A couple students wrote things like, I feel like I didn't shine enough light on the teachers at Douglas. They were really amazing. today. I am eternally grateful for what they did, and I owe my life to one of them. The superintendent said, students have been reaching out saying that now is the time for this country to have a real conversation on sensible gun control laws in this country. I hope we can get it done in this generation, but if we won't, they will. And finally, they had interviewed one of the teenagers on TV, and he said, what we really need now is action. This is the 18th school shooting this year. We are children. This is a 17-year-old saying this. We're children. You guys are the adults. You need to take some action and play a role. So, of course he's right. And as a parent, I think, okay, what action can we take? So I've done a couple things. Our students, our kids, they're watching us and they're judging us. I know my 2 kids judge me all the time. So one thing I did was I joined Moms Demand Action. I did that last year, and this is a gun control group. Today I sent $100 to Everytown for gun safety. If anyone's interested in that, you just Google Everytown and it'll come right up. But the third thing that I would like this board to consider is adding a legislative update item to our agenda. So many other districts include it in their agenda every meeting. I think, and I've said it at that podium as a parent, I think our community needs to hear what our representatives are doing to support our schools and to protect our kids. And I don't think this is a matter of us being afraid of our representatives. In a functioning democracy, it's the other way around. Our representatives should understand and want to hear what their constituents, are saying. So I just needed to say the last 2 days have just been stunning and breathtaking, and these things keep happening. Our kids are being slaughtered in our schools, and nothing is done. So thank you. I know that's depressing.
Well,
it's depressing.
It's reality right now for people.
But I think it is important to. I think it is important to listen to our kids, and listen to them besides if you see something, say something. Plenty of kids apparently said something.
Right.
And so there are other aspects of this that need to be addressed. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Yes, Mr. Cook.
Couple things. Dr. Weber, okay to say is a free program that's put on. They can get posters and everything through, I do believe it's the Department of Education is putting that on, right? And that goes directly to the police and the police contact the schools. It's a very good program. It's a free program for every school district. I think I mentioned it about a couple months ago here. The other thing is, yesterday was an atrocity, but it was one of 13 this year. Not all of them involved school children, but they all happened on school properties. 290 shootings in the United States since 2000, in the last 5 years, 2013. So, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to read a email because special ed kids are near and dear to everybody's heart. So, I've announced before that we have the Above and Beyond program for special ed kids, and they sent out another email, hello from the Novi Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. As you know, the Above and Beyond program is a way to recognize the distinguished service of any individual within the Novi Community School District, either staff or student who has a special need or supports students with special needs as exemplary. Earlier in the school year, they mailed out the nomination form. Due to technical difficulties, they are extending the deadline for nominations. The new deadline is Friday, February 23rd, 2018. There's still time to nominate somebody for this award. In this email, they included a link. I just went on their webpage, their website on our site. I did not see the link. I'll get a hold of them and make sure it gets up there. But I think this is very important to recognize kids that are maybe sitting down and having lunch with one of our special need kids, so they're not sitting alone. One of our staff, whether it's one of our cafeteria workers that really takes care of the kids and makes sure that their needs are met. Even a student that picks up, the scarf of one of the kids and walks him down the hallway. Everybody who gets nominated gets recognized, and they all deserve for going above and beyond. So,
Great. When's the deadline again, Mr. Clerk?
February 23rd, so next Friday.
Wonderful. Okay, a couple other upcoming events on a lighter note. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mena.
Okay.
I apologize.
So Dr. Weber mentioned Project Unified basketball games earlier, and if you haven't had a chance to see those, they're just fantastic events. In fact, you will have two opportunities next week as Novi will be hosting, Novi's Project Unified team will be hosting Northville on Tuesday, February 20th, and then hosting Plymouth on, I believe it's Friday, it's the 23rd, I believe that's Friday. Both games are at 4 p.m. We broadcast all of the games that are happening at the gymnasium, so if you can't make it, you could also watch it on noviathletics.tv, and there is a slight subscription fee, but it's well worth it, and a lot of that goes back to the athletic department. And the last time we did have a game, we did have it broadcasted by one of our seniors, Hikaru Kuro, and he was actually joined for that broadcast by Mrs. Lori Burkhart, who teaches a majority of the kids on our Novi Project Unified basketball team. So if you have a chance to visit that event, I'm telling you, it is absolutely fantastic. The last thing I want to mention is that the Novi Athletic Boosters is hosting their second annual craft beer and wine night. That's one of their big fundraisers. The event will take place on April 20th, Friday, at 7:30 p.m. at Walnut Creek Country Club. You can buy tickets at the Novi High School Athletic Booster site. That's www.noviathleticboosters.com. And I'm sure everybody would be happy to see you there. So that's all I have right now.
Terrific. Well, on that same vein, I will say March 3rd is a big day. Actually, there's two big events you could participate in that support our kids. The Novi Youth Assistance Bowl-a-thon is in the morning that day. And if you go to the Novi city website, you can go to Novi Youth Assistance and you can pledge, or you can volunteer, or you can actually participate. I understand you don't have to be a fantastic bowler because they have the 9-pin rule. And I have done very well in the past with that rule, I just might add. I've bowled over 200. So I can say I bowled over 200 even though I really didn't. And then the second event that evening is the Green Gala, which is the Nova Educational Foundation's big event. So if you want a day filled with activities that support the kids within our school district, those would be two great events. I know the Nova Youth Assistance Bowl-a-thon helps kids during the summer to be able to afford to go to different camps and stuff like that. And a lot of those kids are kids that otherwise wouldn't be able to do that. So it's a great event to support kids that and give them opportunities that keep them busy during the summer, which is really good. And then the NEF obviously does some things that we've already mentioned here tonight in terms of offering events in classroom or giving money back to classrooms in the form of grants and doing some innovative things that the district otherwise might not be able to afford to do. They've also supported the Leader in Me tremendously. That's been their big push. And other things along those lines for the different schools are restorative practices, and at the high school, some of the Haven training that they've done and Playworks, they've been crucial in kind of supporting those things that create leaders in our kids and continue to help develop them as leaders. So I would encourage everyone. I know some of my fellow board members will be going that evening as well as myself, and I would encourage you to come out and support the NEF that evening. And it is at the Suburban Showplace Collection, and they have a Killer Flamingos, which is a fantastic band that will be there for the evening, as well as apparently Darren McCarthy, if you're a Red Wings fan, will be there as well. So I would look forward to seeing some of you there that evening. And that is a lot of board communication and really well, lots of interesting things going on, some of them good and some of them things that we need to continue to work on and decide what role we need to play in. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Moved by Mr. Meta. Is there support?
Support.
It's supported by Mr. Cook. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned for the evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.